welcome to another episode of Up and to the Right, our expert Q&A edition. Our guest today is Brendon O'Donovan. He's Vice President of Product Marketing at TeleSign. Brendon, hi, how are you? Thanks for being on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jen. Great. How are you?
I'm good. So let's get started by just telling us a little bit about yourself and your role at TeleSign.
Sure. I went to school for marketing. I always thought I was going to do marketing, and like every good marketing major, I started in sales. So I did my stint in sales, transitioned into product marketing about 10 years ago, and I've been doing that or a flavor of it ever since. So it's been a lot of fun. I've done product marketing in a couple of different industries and a couple of different companies, everything from startups all the way to publicly traded companies. So it's been a wide variety of different roles and places, but the discipline has always kind of stayed the same. And it's where I belong. It's the nexus of a bunch of different things that I can do all day long, and it doesn't get boring ever. So product marketing is great for me.
That's awesome. Let's talk about that. We'll kind of start simple today. Tell us about
Sure.
product marketing. What is it? What's the role of it in a revenue organization? What are you responsible for?
Yeah. So in plain English, product marketing is really just aligning, what we sell with how we sell it. So at the high level, that's everything from creating, an ICP or persona to your solution messaging, working through the launches, building pricing, packaging, comp intel. It's really across the board, and if you draw all the Venn diagrams, it's that intersection of operations, product, sales, and marketing, and making all of those things come together and making sure that they're successful in the marketplace. So I'm sure I'm forgetting a few things that are on the product marketing plate there, but at a general high level, that's where product marketing sits.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to dig into some of those different areas. So if you left one out, I'm sure we'll have a chance to come back to it. So our audience is kind of at the nexus of all of those areas that you mentioned too, right? We have a lot of the people who are in our audience are on the sales side. We have a lot on the marketing side, and we specifically we focus a lot on operations and kind of the revenue operations of all of this, which is definitely where product marketing is kind of right in the middle of all that. And so one of those areas that we talk a lot about is pricing and packaging, and I know that's something that product marketing often owns. But I know on the sales side of that, it can sometimes seem a little bit like a black box. What goes into it? How did we decide this was the price? Is it just because this is what our competitor is doing? Where does that come from? So can you talk to us a little bit about the process that goes into, determining pricing and packaging and how you put all this together?
Yeah, sure. Pricing ownership is always kind of a funny thing. I think the younger version of me would have said, yes, we own pricing and we're going to make this decision. This is where it goes. I worked for a CEO a little while ago that actually kind of was like, I don't care who owns pricing, because it's really just whoever gets to herd the cats and get the consensus. And to be real, like that's actually how pricing should work, because it's really a decision that's joint across the organization. It's really critical to success. It's not owned by any one person or one department. It just happens to be that product marketing, because it's in the center of those, is often a really good place for those pieces to come together, and they become kind of the diplomat in the room to negotiate the final outcome of the conversation. So there's a couple of inputs that you have to do when you go through those, and it's the stakeholders across that group, and it's sales, it's marketing, it's product, and it's finance and operations that all have to sit together and make sure that it works. The design of how you sell it and how you present it is sales. The profitability is finance. The way it's operationalized and billed is usually operations and accounting. There are a whole bunch of different people that come together to make this decision. And yes, competition is one of them. You need a benchmark of where your differentiators are. Do you have things that are more valued, or does your competitor have things that are more valued? What is the actual value that the customer is willing to pay for those? Do you add or subtract from those? Do you have other differentiators you can offer? And it's about building that value into the pricing. And that's, I guess, kind of the thing that for sales, when they think of if you're seeing a black box, or the sales is seeing a black box of pricing, where you just kind of drop it at the end of the presentation and you're like, hey, surprise, price increase. All sales hears is, okay, now it's harder to make my number, right? And it's the approach really with SaaS isn't that you're doing a cost plus most of the time. Some technologies still have a cost basis that you're putting some level of markup on, but well, I hope no one's actually charging for the line of code that they're writing. So it's really the value that you're presenting to the customer and what they're willing to pay for it, and that's where you charge for it. And that's the difference of what market you're in, how you position your product, and how it compares to the competition, and how well you're able to deliver on that promise, all kind of add up to that price. And for younger sales reps or people that are younger in their career, it can kind of seem a little confusing because you're maybe charging one customer significantly more for the same code than you're charging another customer. But the value to support that customer, the value that you're delivering to that customer is much higher. So therefore, there's a higher price that you can command for that solution. So the best way of kind of getting away from that black box is to align that, yes, it is a value-based price, and to work with sales in the design of that packaging and that offering, so that when you're not dropping that one slide into your presentation and just being like, surprise, and then it never really goes over that well, because discounting is a magical thing that solves everything in sales. So your pricing can get completely destroyed if sales isn't bought in.
Yeah, because then it's all about discounting and all of that, and we know where that leads.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot
Yes.
of this is about having a productive relationship with the sales team, right? I mean, a lot of what we do on the marketing side is very much about that, and vice versa. But in these kinds of things in particular, it seems like communicating with sales is especially important. And so I would imagine there's a lot of the kind of work that you do, not just around pricing and packaging, but all of the rest of the product marketing work that is about enabling sales, equipping sales, when it comes to understanding that value that we're selling. How do they communicate value to prospects?
Mm-hmm.
And so one of your roles is helping to articulate that value. So what are some things that you've learned about communicating with and equipping sales with some of this information?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I kind of skipped over that when you asked up front, but the product marketing isn't just about the operations or the back office. It's in my role right now, I'm in charge of everything from brand to content to messaging to positioning, and all of that kind of falls under me. And I'm end to end. Here's the content. Here's how we build it, and here's the message you deliver. So when you're looking at sales enablement, a lot of what that content is directly used by the field. Even if you're promoting an ebook, the field is still using it to promote and get meetings. If you're using collateral on your website to let people download and see what you've got, sales is using that in their sales cycle. So when you're working with sales, the one thing that I think you really have to understand is that sales is extremely busy, right? They may always have this kind of perception of they make as many calls as they need to before their tea time, but that's not really how it works. There's a lot going on. They're juggling a lot of different opportunities. They're trying to keep a lot of things warm. They're trying to follow up and land things when they need to. So when you're talking to sales, you need to understand that you have a finite amount of time that you can communicate with them, right? And that doesn't mean jam everything into one presentation and talk as fast as you can, because that doesn't work either. What it means is, as you present things, it needs to be tangible for them to use, right? So how is this going to help them? How will this new message, this new offering, this new position help them find new prospects or close prospects faster? What are you telling them that is going to resonate or make it different for them to differentiate themselves, make it easier for them to sell? And that's the starting point. You can't expect to deliver or get sales all on the same page from messaging you've been building for 6 months or a year in 1 hour, right? So it's the ability to be consistent and persistent with enabling sales, to be able to deliver it in bite-sized chunks, deliver the value in ways that they can consume it within their daily workflow. And I guess the other kind of thing that really is almost implicit in all of this is you have to work with sales. Sales doesn't work for you, right? You can't just put an edict out there and say, hey, you need to do this, and now you're enabled. It's a matter of working with them to, hey, what is working for you now? Okay, how do we make it better? Okay, let's work together on that. Give me feedback. And that means you need to drop the ego, and you have to be able to take hard feedback that some of your work probably sucks and the market didn't like it, so you need to fix it. And those types of relationships where you can have that humility and that back and forth relationship with sales as an equal, as opposed to, the channel in which your messaging reaches the audience, creates that working relationship that allows you to enable much more effectively, because you're viewing yourself as a partner in the deal. You're not viewing sales as a channel. You're viewing yourself as a partner in that deal, and your success is their success. So that is really kind of the philosophy, my philosophy in building any sort of enablement program, is make it easily consumed, work with sales, and make sure that you get their buy-in and be persistent about it.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. I liked what you said about how you used the word humility, and you talked about the back and forth, and part of your job is receiving feedback from sales, because they're the ones actually putting this content in front of the customer, right? And so I would imagine that
Right.
the feedback that they get from the field is really valuable.
Mhm.
But being able to take that feedback can be tricky, in a number of ways. I mean, first of all, just having salespeople
Oh,
drop in
sure.
at the desk at any time of day, to say things. Not that that's ever.
I remember we had a competitive campaign, and I put this whole like really pithy, tongue-in-cheek messaging around the competitor and the brand name, and hey, this would be great. It's kind of funny, and marketing thought it was really funny and cute and interesting. But when you looked at the way that sales was using it, you looked at the consumption of it, no one touched it. And it was because you went and talked to some of the senior reps, and they're like, yeah, that was funny, but I can't send that to anybody. Like, that's not something that I can use in my sales cycle. Like, if you guys want to promote it and you can get away with it, that's fine, but it doesn't help me do my job better. This is like the thing I send to them to close my deal. It can't be funny. It has to be real. I was like, oh, right. Yeah. Okay, that's a good point.
Mhm.
And then that changed the entirety of the campaign that we ran and all the enablement. But you have to be willing to look at the data and take the feedback, or you know people won't always come and tell you your baby's ugly. So you kind of have to sometimes ask them, honestly, is it? And if the answer is yes, you should change it.
If only that worked for real babies, right? No, all babies are beautiful. Oh, yeah.
All of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of this is that it's not just your baby, right? That's what all of this is about, is that we can't be too precious about the ideas that we come up with on the marketing side, because how they work in the real world, maybe it isn't what we think. And so it's really important to be able to understand that, yeah, that there is more to this campaign than we maybe originally thought, and all that. So I think that's a really good lesson.
Exactly.
Again, so one of the things I like to talk about, and this ends up coming up a lot on the content marketing side of things, but I think it's very relevant to product marketing as well, is what we call the field of dreams approach to this. That if you build a product, people are just going
Mhm.
to come. So, what's your reaction to that? What do you think about that?
I don't think it's real. I think that if you look at the best products that have ever been built, and these Cinderella stories and these dreams of building a product and then just waking up one morning and your daily active users are off the chart. That's a meme from Silicon Valley. It's not a real thing. It takes time to build momentum. It takes time to differentiate. I think the one quote that comes to mind is David Cancel, the CEO of Drift, who said, product based differentiation is going away. You should act accordingly. And I think it's real. You can build a great product and you can have a great experience, but it's only half the battle, right? You need to be able to articulate, your point of view to a customer. You need to why they should buy from you, why it matters to buy from you, how you're going to make their life better. If you're really honest, there's probably 20 or 30 products out there that do the same thing as what you're doing, and you're working through it, and it's no mystery, because it's never been cheaper or easier to buy scalable hosting or find engineers that can work for you. It's been the longer we work in this industry, the more it becomes easier to work in those places. So it's really important that you have a point of view, a good message, and a good execution on it, because if you don't, somebody else is going to come along, copy your great idea, and they're going to do it, and that's going to make them more successful than what you were. Even if you had the most bulletproof code, it worked better, the latency was lower, doesn't matter. They're going to go with a company that is easier to work with, that speaks their language, and they can get in front of them. So probably a biased perception because I'm clearly in marketing and that's my job. But I think that it really is real that the best companies out there aren't always the best products, but they can speak the right language and they can deliver on that promise. And if you go look at the difference between SurveyMonkey and Qualtrics back in the day, like Qualtrics clearly had the edge on technology. SurveyMonkey had the self-serve, and then Qualtrics finally just switched around and said, we're going to go after a whole different market with this product, and became wildly successful and just moved out of the competition between survey features. And it's still surveys. They still do a lot of surveys, but it's just a difference in the way that they promote it and the way that they execute it really fundamentally changed the way that people bought their product. So that's kind of my point of view is, you have to tell the customer why you're better, why you're different, and how it's going to change their life and how you're going to make them the superhero. And when you get that right and you do make them the superhero, then they come to your field to play ball.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's completely true. I agree with that. You need, the best companies are the ones with the good product and the good everything else around it, right? So if you have both of those, then that's how you win. You're absolutely right. So
Absolutely.
if there was one thing that you could convey to sales about product marketing, what would it be? One thing they could know about it.
Cynically, that we're not just collateral. That's usually it's usually the thing that you get with sales when you walk into product marketing is they'll come to you with a stack of collateral, like, okay, this is what we don't like, and you're like, okay, it's not the collateral you don't like, it's something else. Let's talk about this. And hey, by the way, this is all the different stuff that we do. We can help you with competitive. We can help you understand your market. We can help you build better campaigns for your customers. So it's really understanding that the one thing that you usually see from product marketing is that piece of collateral that comes out at the end of the process. But getting sales to understand that there's a whole working relationship that you can build to get to that point is really important.
That's great. And so on the flip side of that, what's one thing you wish the rest of marketing knew about product marketing?
I guess that we're not product. I think that's a big mistake that often gets kind of mistaken in marketing is, product marketing becomes almost this weird go-between between product and marketing, and it's kind of place, but demand should have a relationship with product. Communication should have a relationship with product. It shouldn't all funnel through product marketing. And it's not a substitute because product really is the people that understand users and their understanding of what they're building and why they're building it, and building great problems and great solutions to problems. And product marketing is the extension of, okay, well, who's buying it? How are they buying it? So they're both very different in their approach. They work together on a lot of things and share a lot of responsibility. But it's still important for marketers to get out and talk to the actual people building the products and not just the people marketing the products that the product is building.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. I like that a lot. So that about wraps it up for us. Before we go, is there anything you'd like to share with us about, TeleSign news, open roles, anything like that you'd like the audience to know?
Yeah, I mean, we are hiring for content marketing manager. So, I mean, if there's anyone out there that wants to enter into the world of authentication, security, and communications, give me a call. But yeah, it's an exciting time. It's a really interesting market. There's a lot going on from the standpoint of the way that the world has changed in the past year and how fast people accelerated to, going full online from everything from their, Amazon deliveries to groceries to, well, I mean, everything. So all of that has kind of pushed forward a lot of what we do, which is securing and preventing fraud and making sure people are verified for their identity. So it's kind of a fun time to be in the middle of that change in the world. So that's my pitch for why you should come write content for me.
Yeah, it sounds like a really exciting time. Well, that's great. And we'll include a link to the job posting too. So if you're watching this, that's either down below or next to this or somewhere around this video. So if you want to learn more, check that out. Thank you so much for coming, Brendon. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. It was a lot of fun.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much. Bye, everybody.
Bye.